the people's lawyer. It's not the president's consigliere. You can't have a situation in which whoever's in charge of the government starts using that to go after their political enemies.
Right there, that man, smiling, confident, lecturing America about how no president should weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, except that man is the reason we're even having this conversation. Because Barack Obama spent nearly a decade doing exactly what he just warned you about. And this week, in 3 massive back-to-back events, history finally began to answer him. I'm going to show you every single one. And by the end of this video, you will understand why the political map of America has just fundamentally shifted and why the Democrats are spending this weekend in an absolute panic. Stay with me, because what happened this week is historic. I've been tracking the systematic effort to undermine Donald Trump's presidency since it began. Not through cable news, not through social media algorithms, through primary sources, court documents, intelligence reports, and international political analysis. What you're about to hear is not opinion dressed up as news. It is documented, it is sourced, and it has been verified. If you want the real battlefield, not the manufactured outrage loop, you are in the right place. Now, let's get into it. Let's start across the Atlantic, because what happened in Britain this week is the opening act of a story that ends right here in America. Keir Starmer's Labour Party just got annihilated, not trimmed, not set back, annihilated. Over 1,800 local council seats gone. Control of the Welsh Parliament gone. Further erosion in Scotland, gone. Eluned Morgan, the Labour leader of Wales, lost her own seat. She stood in the rubble and said something the entire Democratic Party in America desperately needs to hear. It's time to get back to being the party of the working class. Here's what the media is not telling you about why this happened. Show. Graphic comparing UK Labour policies versus Reform Party platform. Starmer didn't just lose an election. He was an experiment. And the experiment failed catastrophically. Obama had personally taken credit for Starmer's 2024 victory. He coached him. He counseled him to be authentic. He mentored him. What that mentorship produced was described by British political commentator Jonathan Cook as, and I want you to hear this clearly, the UK's first totally synthetic, laboratory-grown prime minister. Think about that. Starmer continued London's disastrous green energy crusade. He maintained open border immigration policies, including the inexcusable protection of rape gangs from prosecution. He kept pouring British resources into the Ukraine-Russia conflict while simultaneously raising taxes and cutting welfare for working British people. And he did something even more politically self-destructive. He kept scheming against Donald Trump and against Trump's project of dismantling the rotten globalist order that gives people like Starmer and Obama their political power. When Trump moved against Iran's nuclear ambitions and the resulting energy disruption hit British household bills, working-class British voters had finally had enough. Nigel Farage's Reform Party surged. They now control dozens of local councils. Their message was brutally simple: end open borders, end net zero, end the war fantasy, bring down the cost of living. That's the same deadly net zero energy agenda that Obama and Biden imposed on the United States. And here's the part that should make every American voter sit up straight. As of this week, Barack Obama has been meeting privately with Canada's newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney, along with globalist financier George Soros' son, Alex Soros, mapping what can be salvaged in Britain and planning new fronts in the broader war against the populist movement that elected Donald Trump. Britain is not a foreign story. Britain is a preview. Now we come home. And this is where the week gets seismic. The Supreme Court of Virginia, in a 4-3 decision, struck down the Democrats' congressional redistricting referendum. Dead. Gone. Virginia runs its 2026 midterm elections under existing districts. The press is covering this like a procedural dispute. It is not a procedural dispute. Here's what actually happened. After President Trump encouraged Republican-led states to redraw their congressional maps to more accurately reflect the actual electorate, Virginia Democrats, under the personal direction of Barack Obama, launched what can only be described as the most aggressive partisan gerrymander in the entire country. The original map, 6 Democratic seats, 5 Republican seats. Their redrawn map, 10 Democratic seats, 1 Republican seat, in a state Trump nearly carried. A state that is genuinely competitive. They wanted to wipe 4 Republican members of Congress off the map, not by winning votes, but by drawing lines. To do it, they bypassed the bipartisan redistricting commission that Virginia voters had approved by constitutional amendment in 2020. They rammed a new amendment through the legislature on an illegal fast track. They put it on a special ballot in April, spending over $5 million in taxpayer money, with outside groups pouring in nearly $100 million more. The ballot language was deliberately written to mislead voters. They called it a temporary measure restoring fairness. What it actually was a rigged map designed to guarantee Democratic control of the House in 2026, secure the presidency in 2028, and lock in Democratic majorities through the 2030 midterms. Their gerrymander ate every district Donald Trump had won. It made the entire Virginia congressional delegation dependent on Northern Virginia, the one region Trump lost. Show quote graphic from Virginia Supreme Court ruling. And then the Virginia Supreme Court stepped in. In their ruling, and I want you to hear this language, they laid out in painstaking detail exactly how Democrats violated the Virginia Constitution through that illegal fast track. They called the vote fatally poisoned. 4 justices against 3. The map is dead, but it doesn't stop there. On April 29th, the United States Supreme Court issued a decision in Louisiana versus Kellis, a ruling that has received almost no mainstream coverage despite being potentially the most consequential redistricting decision in a generation. The court outlawed race-based gerrymandering nationwide. This sets up a redistricting scramble throughout the South. It calls into direct question California's redrawn map, which was explicitly based on racial composition. And it vindicates Texas's redistricting effort, clarifying that what Texas did was not a political whim of Donald Trump. It was the elimination of illegally drawn race-based districts. In a single week, the 2026 midterm map shifted from Democratic near certainty to genuine Republican advantage. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, who is no partisan hack, described what Democrats did in Virginia in 3 words: a prolonged primal scream. Because they know exactly what just happened to their plan. Now I want to show you something that gets less coverage than the legal battles, but may actually matter more for what comes next. This week, Vice President JD Vance spoke to Iowa Republicans at a factory that manufactures steel grills for big trucks, not a hotel ballroom, not a fundraiser, a factory floor. And he said something that I think cuts to the exact reason the populist movement keeps winning when the political class keeps insisting it shouldn't be possible. He talked about his hometown, about factories that closed, about communities that were proud, communities where people built things, turned to ghost towns by the time he graduated high school. He talked about what it means to watch a 6-year-old son and wonder whether that child might one day serve in uniform, and what it means out and what it costs when a family loses that child in service to the country. There's a father and there's a mother and there's a grandma and aunts and uncles and a whole crew of people who love them the same way that we all love every single member of our family. He invoked Saving Private Ryan, specifically the final scene. The dying soldier looks up and says 2 words, "Earn this." That is not a polished campaign line. That is a man speaking from something real. And the contrast with manufactured politicians like Obama, Starmer, and the modern Democratic Party could not be more stark. And then there is this story, which is something almost no national outlet is covering, but which I think tells you more about the future of political communication than anything happening in Washington. Spencer Pratt lost his home in the Pacific Palisades fire. He didn't take a settlement and move on. He got angry. He started running for mayor of Los Angeles. A filmmaker named Charles Curran produced a short AI-generated video ad for Pratt's campaign. It went viral. The ad dramatized what Democrats have done to California with brutal, unflinching honesty. It showed the contrast between what California's Democratic leadership promises and what it actually delivers to working people. No $100 million consulting budget, no pollster-approved messaging framework, no teleprompter, just one guy who lost his house, one filmmaker friend, and an AI tool. Recent polling shows Pratt in second place, tied with incumbent Mayor Karen Bass, in a city that hasn't had a competitive mayoral race in years. That is the asymmetric power of authentic outsider messaging against a manufactured aristocracy. Trump understood it first. Vance has absorbed it completely. And now a guy who lost everything in a fire is demonstrating it in real time in the most democratic city in America. Manufactured politicians lose to truth tellers. That is not a slogan. It is a documented pattern. Let me pull back and show you the full picture, because these three stories are not separate events. They are three chapters of the same story. Across the Atlantic, Obama's hand-selected synthetic prime minister just got buried by working-class British voters who have had enough of green energy fantasies, open borders, and permanent war that they are being asked to pay for with their own cost of living. Here at home, the Virginia Supreme Court used language I want every American voter to remember. They called Obama's gerrymandering operation exactly what it was: theft. The Louisiana ruling means race-based map drawing is finished as a national Democratic strategy. The 2026 midterm map has shifted, not marginally, but fundamentally. And on the campaign trail, JD Vance is talking to Americans about sacrifice, about earning something worthy of what this country has cost, while a man who lost his home in a wildfire runs circles around the Los Angeles Democratic machine with 30-second AI videos made for a fraction of what consultants charge for a single memo. This is not the story the legacy media will tell you this week. They will tell you Democrats are surging. They will tell you Trump is isolated. They will tell you the resistance is organizing. What they will not tell you is that the map just shifted. The British operation is being rolled up. The redistricting strategy that was supposed to guarantee the House in 2026 just got ruled unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court that was supposed to rubber stamp it. And the one thing Obama's manufactured Democrats cannot face, authentic people talking honestly about what is actually happening, keep showing up in places their consultants never expected. Here is where we are. We are not done. The battle for the 2026 midterms has just begun. The doom scrollers will try to tell you the country is lost and your vote doesn't matter. That's always been the message from the side that can't win on honest terms. Our job is to stay on the real battlefield. If this video gave you information you didn't see anywhere else, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells YouTube this content is worth showing to more people. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. And if you want the full research behind everything I just told you, including the primary sources, court documents, and international analysis, the link to our free newsletter is in the description below. The midterm map just shifted. Let's make sure the right people know it.